All right, hello. Um, Today I'm going to be reviewing some information regarding STIs and explore how communicable infections are spread. Also, thank you to those that presented today. You did a great job. All right, so ways HIV is not transmitted include in the air or on environmental surfaces, kissing if bleeding or open sores are not present in the mouth, saliva, tears, sweat, and insects. What mode of transmission has resulted in the greatest number of HIV infection cases? So, again, what mode of transmission do you think has resulted in the greatest number of HIV infection cases? If you were thinking vaginal and anal sex, then you are correct. Before we move on to that next one, misinformation still exists about HIV infection and AIDS. Why do we think all these myths of transmission, such as transmission from mosquitoes, are still around after 2 decades of studying HIV? Why do we think all those myths still exist? Well, people are just continuing to share misinformation, not being educated properly, and not truly going to look and find the reason, the real truth behind it. So, one of the myths was, where did HIV come from? There are many different theories and myths that are shared. This from the CDC, I wanted to share with you. I mentioned it today during our Zoom. Scientists identified a type of chimpanzee in Central Africa as the source of HIV infection in humans. They believe that the chimpanzee version of the virus most likely was transmitted to humans and mutated into HIV when humans hunted these chimpanzees for meat and then came into contact with their infected blood. Studies show that HIV may have jumped from apes to humans as far back as the late 1800s. So over decades, the virus slowly spread across Africa and later into other parts of the world. So we know that the virus has existed in the United States since at least the mid to late 1970s. So a lot of times that question comes up of, where did HIV come from? So, the sexually transmitted infections that are most commonly seen in teenagers include chlamydia being number one. It can be treated and cured with antibiotics. It is a bacteria, so it can be treated and cured. Genital warts, or HPV, can be treated with antibiotics, but it cannot be cured because it is a virus. Herpes can also be treated with antibiotics, but cannot be cured because it is also a virus. And gonorrhea can be treated and cured with antibiotics because it is also a bacteria. So those four are the most common sexually transmitted infections seen in teenagers. So which sexually transmitted infections often show no symptoms early in the infection? Take a guess. We've talked about six different sexually transmitted infections. Of those six, which ones do you think show no symptoms early in the infection? All of them. So if you guessed all six, you are right. When symptoms are present, what symptoms do you think are most often seen? Well, common symptoms include discharge from the vagina, the penis, and the rectum, pain with urination, sores, blisters, warts, and flu-like symptoms. So which STIs are not curable? Well, genital warts, or HPV, herpes, and HIV. Since they're all viruses, they are not curable. Which STIs can be transmitted even when no symptoms are present? Well, as you can see, there's 5 there. chlamydia, genital warts, herpes, gonorrhea, and HIV. They can all be transmitted when no symptoms are present. The only one that we are missing is syphilis, and those would have a canker or a sore that would be present, and that you'd have to transmit it. So what can you do to protect yourself? Well, first, abstain from intimate sexual contact. Have sexual contact only in a mutual monogamous relationship with a person who isn't infected. And how effective are condoms in preventing the transmission of HIV and STIs? Well, latex condoms, when used consistently and correctly, are highly effective in preventing the sexual transmission of HIV. They can reduce the risk of transmission of gonorrhea and chlamydia. They can reduce the risk of genital herpes and syphilis only when the infected area is protected by the condom. While the effectiveness of condoms in preventing genital warts is unknown, condom use has been associated with a lower rate of cervical cancer, a disease associated with genital warts. So we've learned some very important information about sexually transmitted infections. Any infection that can be spread from one person to another is called a communicable infection. It is important to understand how communicable infections are spread so that we can avoid coming in contact with them. STIs are just one type of communicable infection. If we were in class right now, we would do a classroom demonstration. I'd pass out cards to everyone that were closed and had something inside, written something inside. One person in the class would have a virus, and everyone in class would be instructed to shake hands with multiple people. The demonstration shows how communicable infections are transmitted. So in the end, a lot of people have shook hands with the virus, which is spreading, and it's spread by handshaking. And if you shook hands with the person with it, then you've been exposed to it. On some people's cards, it had said that they were wearing gloves. So if they were wearing gloves, then they were protected. Some people refused to shake hands, so they were also protected. So this is just a demonstration that's showing that if you're using protection or abstaining from, then you will protect yourself from a communicable infection. Pretended that the infection was spread by shaking hands, and there are similarities between this virus and STIs. The virus that we would have done in the demonstration and STIs are different in that STIs would not be spread in the classroom by casual contact. But they are similar in that exposure to the germ can be avoided by refusing to have contact, and exposure can be reduced by using a barrier, such as a condom. Both the virus and STIs, you cannot tell by looking at a person whether or not he or she is infected. Some STIs are curable and some are not, and some are fatal. Some STIs are not prevented completely by condom use, and some are highly preventable with consistent and correct condom use. So virus Z was a hypothetical infection, but STIs are real. What are the only ways to be completely sure not to get an STI? Well, again, abstaining from intimate sexual contact, only having sexual intercourse within a mutual monogamous lifetime relationship, such as marriage, with an uninfected person. One of the homework assignments for this week was to complete the Think About It, It's Your Health at Stake questions. So just responding with what kinds of sexual risks are young people your age taking? And given what we know about the risks and how easily STIs are spread, why don't we treat sexual activity with more caution? So that is one of the assignments. The other assignment for the week was a fact and myth sheet, sex and the law, myths and facts. So if you could make sure to also respond with your answers for that. We are going to end this short video with a YouTube video on consent. So it's kind of a way to make the topic of consent.
But they remain under no obligation. But they remain.
Sorry, it's not started in the beginning. Comparing consent like a cup of tea. So when this short video ends, we will be done with class. And so here we go.
Tea. You say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no thank you, then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, yes, please, that's kind of you. And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it going, but you wanted tea last week. Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, but you wanted tea last night. If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
So next week, we will be talking about sex and the law, the myths and facts, and also about consent. Bye.